Hi guys, and welcome back. I'm getting out my candle and lighting it. You know the drill by now. We're gonna make a cozy space. I hope you're not finding this series to be stressful or overwhelming. These things take practice, and the more and more you do them, the better you will get. Got my candle lit. Today I have a mug of peppermint tea, and we're just gonna keep on going. So we're on day 8. If you've got your printables, get out your day 8. If you've got your calendar, I hope you're sort of checking off the boxes each day. It's kind of fun to see the progress, like you're totally getting there. I promise by the end of the 30 days, you'll know more than you did at the beginning, you know? And if nothing else, you're giving yourself time for yourself to just sit and do a thing with tea and a candle, know what I mean? All right, let's talk about supplies for a minute. We've got watercolor paints, we've got a towel, some kind of water, a spray bottle if you've got it. It's just kind of handy. You know all this by now, but in case anybody's doing them out of order. A pencil, a kneaded eraser of some sort, size 10 round watercolor brush. Don't I look like such an influencer when I do this? So you can actually see the brush, right? Dumb. Okay. We don't actually need any kind of pen for today, so you're good with that. And then we need a piece. I'm going to be using a piece of 3" by 3" watercolor paper. Mine is the Canson 140-pound cold press. You could do this on any size paper. You could do a big sheet and do a whole bunch of them. Honestly, that's a really great way to practice. What else? I think that's it. So we're going to kind of get into it. Day 8. Glazing. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a refresher, I think, from days 1 and 2. Days 1 was that we go light to dark, okay, and day 2 was brush pressure. So you're going to see that this one, I suppose I could show it to you, looks like this, and there's another version of it as well. And it's going to reinforce the ideas of light to dark and brush pressure, but it's for glazing. So glazing, let's read it. Glazing means layering wet paint on top of dry paint as many times as you want. Start light and get darker as you go. So the thing to know about this is just like glazing is layering. I mean, it's layering. It's just that underneath of it has to be dry first. So whenever I'm reading a book about watercolor or whatever, it's like I just tell my brain, you know, glazing, layering, got it. And that's all you need to know. So we're just going to do, I think this one's going to be kind of simple. And since I've made you do some more difficult ones, like day 5, I think, I still am wondering how day 5 was for you guys. But we're just going to kind of get to it. So here we go. Okay, here we go. So we're just going to start by kind of observing it for a minute. Let me get some of this out of our way. We don't need our brush yet, just pencil, eraser, and paper. And let's just look at these. First of all, they're not the same. They're similar, and that's all we need today. If we look at this one on this side, you can see that we've got a light layer of this sort of light bluish color first. Then we've got a layer of the darker on top. That is it. That's us doing glazing. And then I just sort of liked this one. If we look at these sort of orange palms or oranges or whatever, see how I've got this dark layer on top? I don't know if I like it or not. You think about if you want to do it. I think today we'll do it, but more subtly than that. This one just has the oranges like this. So you can think about which way you want to go. I think the pinks are more pronounced on the left, and I like that because I can notice them more. Here we go. I'll turn it the same direction. But it is the same thing. If you look at the leaves, the dark blue leaves on the one on the right, notice how they have white space in them. When we're using our brush, we're just going to create that, and instead of filling it in, you just leave it blank. So I can talk about that as we get there, but this is where we're going. Just some simple layering. I want you to know that if you decide you want to add a 3rd layer in, you could either go darker on the top or even lighter on your first layer, and you just pause the video for a second, add another layer in kind of when we get there. So that's basically it. I guess one more thing I want us to observe is just that on this bottom layer, our stems are what we're going to put in. So see how they kind of go like this. We get some big ones, and then we're going to use our brush similar to how we did on day 2 to kind of put these little petals in. It'll get you a chance to sort of practice that technique that we did earlier. And I am going to have us sketch a decent amount of this at least as we go. I just want to make sure we have space for the flowers and the orange palms. So that's what we'll try to do in our sketch. And if we accomplish that, that's all we needed. So I think because I like this one better, we're going to use this one as a guide, but I'll try to remember to get in here for this. All right, I'm going to do the zoom again because I'm such a techie person now, she says as she wobbles the camera. Okay. The first thing we want to do with the stem is get this light one in. And I think that today it'll make it more simple if we actually draw these in. But if you want the challenge of it, you don't sketch them in, you do it with a brush. But what you need to know is when we plan, you need to leave space for all of those and still fit in the circles and the flowers. Make sense? So you're giving yourself a little bit more of a challenge if you do it that way, but then you can use your brush to create this shape and not worry about seeing pencil as well. So here we go. As I look at the light one, I'm looking for where do I see those stems? Let's see. I don't know what I can put here to measure. It's this far up. It's a little more than a third. So if you kind of just guess on it a little bit, we're over here somewhere. This is not science, so we're going to be okay with it. It's going to take this light on your pencil so you can move things, okay, this way and over, and we'll end sort of here. And we'll do another one from coming out from it. See how this one starts and it comes up and over to the right? I can still fit my finger on top of it, so I don't want to get too close to the top. Anything we're doing, we need space. Let's start it right here. We need space to put leaves on either side. So we've got two lines now. I see this one coming up and away, closer to the beginning. So you can even put a dot where you want it to end. Take your line and curve it, pressing lightly on your pencil. That way, if you don't like it, you can just move it. Here's another one. It starts here, just a little bit left of center, curves down. Make sure that you leave some space for the petal. So I always want a leaf at the end of our line, on the end, just something there. Otherwise, it kind of looks like, you know, when you buy flowers at the store and like, then the flowers just like popped off, like somebody just, and then you just have this stem. That's not cool. We don't want that. So, all right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the end. Okay, we're good with this one. So safety is going to have us just draw these on ahead of time. It's just, you can plan your space really well if you do. So see how I put a leaf right on the end of this one? Press light because this color is going to be light. So the darker you press, the less you sort of get the effect of light to dark. And we're just going to kind of pop them in here. Start at your stem, move out in a curved way, right? And at the point, start curving back and meet at that same spot. That's just kind of a good way to do leaves. And I like to show if you wanted to do all your leaves this way instead. Also very cute. But I'm going to erase those. I think for me, I like to just stay consistent, but see what you like. Consistent in some way, like they can kind of move up or whatever. We're going to put them in here. We may end up erasing some to make space for flowers in circles, so keep that in mind. We really are pressing lightly. We'll do some over here. And they don't need to be perfect. Don't get caught in perfection. I just think it'll make you quit. You wouldn't believe the things. Especially for classes, like in-person classes and stuff. It's like, you will absolutely get the effect. And I'll show people, I'll be like, look at this hot mess. Like, I don't know, look at this. I don't know. But we're not really nitpicking. If we did, we might find spots we don't like. But in the end, why would we do that? Okay, here we go. Down here, this one's got one off to the side and one at the end. You're just kind of popping these on. We don't need too many because we know we're going to sort of cover it. So if you look at this one, oh, once again, I forget to tell you to do a screenshot, but look, here we are. Do one here if you would like. You'll get it. And that way you've got it on your phone to look at it in case I'm going too fast or whatever, you just want it. Okay, I've got this many. For now, I'm thinking I'm going to leave the rest of that. No, I'll do a couple right here, but not too many because I know I need space for a lot of other stuff. And I think let's put in a couple of the circles and flowers now, because if I do that, then I can just avoid them on our next round. So I see some sort of a circle here. Doesn't matter. Just look for spots. Like, you can use this one as a reference, or you can make it up. And maybe you use it for a reference this time, and then you do another one when you're done, or a whole page of them. And every time you do this concept, but you find new spaces to put things. I don't know if I want one here because it's going to cross that stem. So I think instead, yeah, I'm going to put it all the way here. Let's see what happens. And we'll do some flowers. So the flowers are just, I'll just kind of, the thing about flowers is they always have like a center, and the petals are all coming from the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see what I'm doing? I'm starting at the center, looping around and back, around and back. These are very simple. They're all just 4 petal rounded flowers. If you have a different shape that you like, go for it. And we're going to pop some of them in here. So I'm just going to look at my one on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll do the circle. But if you'd rather do the circle first, that's good too. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're just looking around. I like that there's one kind of in the middle here, so I want to make sure to get it in. Now, this might make it trickier for our next stems, but once again, I believe in you. Okay. I hope you hear me saying that to my teenagers when you hear me say it. Okay. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flowers. I'll finish the circle on that one. That's as many as I want, but after I get our next bit in here, I might add some more. So now I'm trying to decide if we're going to sketch the dark blue one or not. I say let's actually do this first. Okay, I'm taking a risk here because I think otherwise you're going to get confused which petals are which. This kind of simplifies it to let's do our first layer, and then we're painting it in layers anyway. We'll sketch that next layer too. So, okay, so just all you're doing for now is looking at your shapes and seeing if there's anything real wonky. If it's just mildly wonky, who cares? And I think that's it. So remember that once you paint with watercolor paints over this, you can't erase your pencil. So get rid of those lines now, and we will start mixing up our paints. And I'll unzoom. Wow. Okay. All right. I didn't clear off my paint palette before we started today, so I'll do that with you. I'm grabbing a piece of paper towel, and I'll show you how I do it. I don't know. You're probably, I mean, you've figured out a way by now, right? Otherwise, you're just using the paints that are there. But I'll take my paper towel, dip it into my water jar like this, and squeeze it off on the side. This is like my favorite way of doing it. Maybe a little bit more water. Versus like using the spray bottle. I just don't want, I don't know. Why don't I like the spray bottle? Maybe it's messier. Listen, I have no idea, but this is how I've done it in classes this whole time. So this is how we're doing it. Well, this is how I'm doing it. Okay, moving on. Let me bring the light a little bit closer. So we're going to start to make up colors, and we don't need too many today. Let's start with the small puddles. Hold on. Anybody else need to move your drink away from your water right now so you don't accidentally put your paintbrush in there? Peppermint tea. Okay, dipping my brush into my water first. Now, we've got pink. Pink is on your top left if you've got this set. If you don't have this set, you could use another color like this, and it's going to be red plus water. So you can get your red. You can even clean the red out of your brush and add water to it, and just play with it until you get a color that you like. I really do like the pink in this set, but I know not everyone has it. But it was definitely a reason I kept this set around. Okay, here we go. So we've got a little puddle of pink. Notice it's very small. We don't need a lot. And Then let's see, we're going to do an orange. I like doing one of these lighter oranges. If you have a very basic set today, you might do orange plus a little bit of yellow. And we can spray our paints. You know by now I always forget. But this will make it nicer if we need colors later too. So orange, we got pink. The colors we'll be using later are sort of the dark pink or red and then a darker orange. We don't need those now though, and we're going to get whatever light blue you want. So remember, in color mixing, we just can play with our colors and do anything we want. So just kind of go through your paints for a minute. If you want to pause the video, that's fine, and mix a few blues together until you find one that you really like. When you get your first layer, remember that it needs to be pretty light. I do find I like mixing a little bit of green into that layer. I always love when I see similar colors next to each other, but you can do that, or if you're going to do this dark blue and you want just a lighter version of that, you can absolutely do that too. So I'm cleaning out my brush now, and I want to get into whatever this dark color is. If you're using my paint set today, I think if you start at the top center, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's that one. 5th one down. It's just this very, I don't know, sort of vibrant blue. I think it's pretty beautiful. I didn't use it for a long time, and then all of a sudden I was like, hey, that one's pretty. So we've got 2 puddles here, great, and we've got the little ones. That's all we need for now. We'll move them out of the way. We're gonna come closer again so we can see what we're doing, and I'm gonna try to get you this. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is just work on this light layer of the blue. I cleaned out my brush. I even dried it on my towel. I just like you guys to know what you're dealing with, because really controlling your water, how much water and how much paint, is like a very big portion of what we do. So from here, you can practice pressure if you'd like to. So light on the tip of your brush, press and lift. If you don't want to, you can just kind of do the outsides of it. You can paint it any way that you want. Remember that pressing light on the tip of your brush is how you get into these small spaces. And we're just going to sort of follow it down. I like to do the stem at the same time. I like when I'm doing things like this that they sort of, I treat them as one shape. So they're wet at the same time, they'll dry at the same time. I find that that looks a little bit less sort of messy when they dry at different times. You know, it is glazing, really. And so then one layer so we might sit on top of the other in a way that you didn't intend. I'm just kind of taking my tip of my brush, running it along the stems, filling these in. If you want to leave some white spaces in these, go along one side, go along the other. See what happens. If you like the white space that was left behind, just leave it. If you don't, try for it on your next one. And, you know, not all of them need to be that way. I remember when I first started painting, though, I think I did maybe eucalyptus or something, and I left those spaces and I was like, whoa, that looks so cool. That looks like I know how to paint with watercolors. I think we'll get the stronger effect on the next layer anyway, so don't worry about how many of those white spaces you're seeing in there. And I'm going to just take a breath for a second because I'm thinking you probably need to kind of catch up with where I'm at. If any of them you don't like, or if you think, oh, I wish I would have added another petal, I'll just show you, like right here. You can absolutely take your brush and just draw one in. Pretend like your brush is a pencil for a minute, draw it, and then fill it in. Or you can practice pressure. But this is the kind of thing I would do an entire page of. When I first started painting, I like dove in, like all of a sudden that's all I did. And I'm glad. Okay. So orange next, and none of my orange, well, this one is touching a petal. So if you have oranges touching these, you can dry everything and then get to your oranges. Just look at your paper though. The way you know it's wet is if you see the light reflecting on it. So now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do an orange. If you wanted to, you could leave this little highlight on what I'm going to say is the top left, just whatever that is for you, where Let's see if you can see it, where I just left a space there. Because remember, we have to preserve our white space first. So if you wanted that highlight, go around the edge first, right? And then just skip a space when you do it next. Okay, I need to refresh my orange paint, so I'll do that. But remember, this is a very small space. So we need a small puddle, and we need maybe the first third of your brush in there so that things aren't getting out of control. Hope you guys are having fun with this, like in general. Okay, that touched wet paint, but I like to take risks sometimes. And like if these colors bleed a little bit, honestly, we love to see it. It's just when it gets too out of control. So when you have a color bleed, decide if you like it. If you do, leave it. Now, the way I typically paint, I would probably take some darker orange paint, and while these are wet, load it right into that bottom corner. But because today we're doing glazing, I'm not going to do it that way. And I think we can get right into our pink flowers. So I'm cleaning out my brush, making sure my puddle is still a puddle, not dried up. Refresh it if you need to. And now we can do the whole flower. You don't have to avoid the center because light to dark, it can just dry and then it'll sit right on top and it won't make any difference at all. So why take the work to avoid it? Plus, then you don't have any white space between the two. Notice I'm just kind of taking my brush, sort of pulling it into the center and or outward, either way, but just sort of using pressure on the brush to fill those in. If any of them got darker than you want, or you don't, you can adjust it by lifting. You would clean out your brush, dry your brush, and touch it, and you'd lift up any excess paint. I'm kind of chugging along. I hope you're with me. I'm going to take a second, use my heat gun. If you don't have one yet, they are linked below, but it's like this. And then I'm going to dry it real quick so we can move on. All right, it's a bit of a challenge to have done it this way because now we have what we have to, we have to work within this. First of all, I love this. I don't know why, I just looked at it and I'm kind of obsessed. I like what happens when we do it with pencil because I like seeing the pencil on the outside versus if you look at the difference of this. So this is something for you to think about. I love just like taking a minute to observe, what do you like when you see paintings or watercolors in general? If it's colors, great. If it's certain things like this, just it's nice to observe it because then you decide probably when I do it, I want to do it this way versus this way. So this one was done with a brush, no pencil first. And what we see is that it's just sort of fades out into the background. There's sort of a lovely effect of that. This one is certainly more of a sketch because you can see the pencil, but I like how these leaves are sort of defined differently. So I think it's cool to know how to do both. There are times you'll want to do this way and times you'll want to do this way. And it'll be cool to compare because we are drawing it first, so you'll be able to see what the whole thing looks like with pencil. So that being said, I do think we should go in with our pencil now because we'll have to very carefully, like look at this. I put two things right here, but I need a stem coming up across. So that stem is either going to have to fit right between, or maybe it comes from here or here. So you're going to be doing a little puzzle today. I'm not sure if I intended this or not, but let's pretend like I totally did, okay? So now this first stem is going to come up from the bottom and across this way. So somehow you got to fit a stem in that way. It's going to be skinny, but a paintbrush is thicker than a pencil. So make sure that you've got space for it. I think for me, I'm going to be safer to just start it here, but I don't really want to follow this same curve. If I do it, I want to come this way so it crosses over, and then I'm going to get into my empty space. Realize when you're going to leave space for a stem, you're going to have leaves on either side. So it's safest to kind of put it in a space where you can tuck some leaves on either side. So wish me luck, I'm doing it. Let's go. Light on your pencil and you will be able to erase this. Even though it's on top, it's not covered. Okay, so I went all the way up towards the center and took a curve. I do kind of want to have two separate sprigs here. So this one I'm going to take that direction and then I'll come here and start it as far back as I can and come this direction. We can go all over the top of these light stems, but what I don't want to do is just cover them. So this one I want to come sort of up in this direction. It's going to leave it so that they're crossing like this versus just on top of each other. What's the point of that? Okay, And then we'll get this one's going to come up and it's going to turn into 2. So I think if I start back here, I can get this one going this way and this one going this way. I think that gives me more of a crossover. So this is just sort of studying like composition and how you want to see things. I think some of these are heavier on sketching and some are heavier on painting. But from here, let's go ahead and use our pencil to get the leaves in, because I think that way you get time to sort of go like, okay, I can fit one here. Like, for example, look how close I got to this. And look, those ones are touching. So I guess it's fine because it is glazing, so we won't have to worry about wet paint. You can start by putting a petal on the end of each one if you want. I call them petals. Listen, they're leaves. You know what I'm saying. I will erase whatever is in the middle of them, though, before we start painting, because you'll see it otherwise. Not the end of the world, but not what I want to see. So from here, we're just going to start to fill them in. You could add little tiny stems on them if you'd like. These ones are going to overlap, so now I got to decide how do I do that? Do I want one here? I don't know. That looks too tight for me. They can go very like nice and tight to the stem, like kind of matching the direction, or they can go out. You got all kinds of options here. Yep, and I just love this good overlap, like a different direction. And I'm just gonna kind of, I'll do some here too. I'm gonna fill in these big white spaces. It's like a perfect way to think about it, like, oh, big gap, leaf. Whenever I do anything floral, I like to think about it like that. Like I do my biggest flowers first, smaller flowers next, you know, all the way down to the smallest, and then leaves. If they're big leaves or important ones, I'll put them in, but otherwise later I just use them as filler. Leaves are perfect for filler. I think I'll do some down here, and what I want us to know is that you can add them with your paintbrush later. So this is where I'm at. Look at yours, take a second. We do want to go through, and so any spaces where it's like this and that stem kind of comes up into the leaf. For me, I just don't want to see it, so I'll erase it a little. With this kneaded eraser, I'll probably erase a little bit more. You can decide if you want to draw it back or not. Because with watercolor, you know, your sketch is the guide. I don't mind a couple spots where I don't see it, so I'm not even going to fill it back in. Okay, here we are. So we're going to get back to our puddle. This was mine. See how it's already kind of drying up? The edges are drying up like that. I'm going to dip the tip of my brush into the water and kind of move this around. Don't be afraid to kind of get in there, okay? And I want to make sure that this kind of looks how I want. So as I start this, if my paint isn't doing what I want, I will pause and adjust my paint. Never just keep moving. I always think of that as like life. Like if you assess and things aren't going the way you want, you gotta, you know, you gotta stop and adjust. Don't just keep going down the wrong path. Oh my gosh, listen to me. What a mother of teenagers I am. All right, let's do this. Light on the tip of your brush. I'm gonna come down one stem, I think. And then from here, remember, you can go this way if you want to and leave that white space in there, or you can do pressure. You're the boss of your art. I don't want huge spaces in all of them. So I'll just kind of change it so that they're different on each. If your shape gets wonky like mine just did, make your leaf just a little bit bigger. Happens all the time. Now my paint, since I'm very limited on my water, I'm having to add a little bit. But I'd rather do that than have my water be out of control. If you remember, the rule that we learned on day 3 is that the more water, the less control. The less water, the more control. So we want to keep our water in check. So I just filled up my bird feeders upstairs. And so my cat is like less of a menace down here right now while I'm recording, because she's just watching the birds, hoping she can somehow get through that window and get them. Okay, I had to leave this one small so I don't get into my flower, but I can cover my flower if you want. I personally just kind of don't want the flowers covered. If you cover them though, no big deal. This is coming along, isn't it? If you stop and look at your painting, I hope you really like it. We're just following the sketch that we did for this second layer. I'm going to turn my paper a little bit. Don't be afraid to do that. I wasn't for a while since I'm on camera, but honestly, I think it really helps with just getting, I don't know, it's just easier to work a certain direction. So whatever that is for you, just make sure you put it in a direction that's good for you. At this point, I will look to see if there's any other spaces I want to fill in. Like right here, I'm going to do a little stem +1. So observe it and see what you think. You're not done until you say you're done. It might be cute with a little one this way. I'll add one like this, maybe a baby one. If you wanted all these to overlap, like on each layer, you know, you could have a petal and another petal right in front of it. Great. Totally up to you. So we're not done yet. We've got a couple more things. One is we're going to get into our paints, and I'll just show it to you. I'm going to get very little water, tip of my brush in the water, and that's it. And I'm going to get into this darker orange. I need the tiniest puddle. It can hardly be considered a puddle, but it is. And actually, I was thinking about the centers of the petals. Let's make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to mix it in. Because remember, I didn't want it to be quite as bold as this one. All right, and so now we're back. I'm going to do this on, if we kept our highlight at the top left, we'll do this on the bottom right. Just little. It's like you're going around the edge of the orange and in sort of a smiley face, but the smiley face is sort of bottom right. I like it this way better because it's less bold than this one, but I was just kind of playing with ideas on the other one. So see the difference between the two. And now we'll make our puddle for the pink. I'm cleaning my brush, getting into dark pink or dark red, just the littlest amount. I'll show it to you here. Teeny tiny is all we need. And we can basically, like, I don't know, you might have to circle your brush around, but you might just tap it on there. No one needs perfect circles unless you like it that way. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. I dig this, you guys. I hope you do too. This kind of, I did a lot of this in the beginning, which wasn't that long ago, let me remind you. Okay, so from here, you've got your felt tip pen or whatever it is you want to have with you, and you can sign your work. I'm going to do it right down here. You can date it on the back if you want. You can do initials. You can do anything. And then don't forget that you can share it on my Facebook page where you can see everybody else's work as well. And anywhere that you post it, I don't know, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you can do hashtag Audrey's Art Club, which I know is a little silly, but just sounded fun. So that's how you'll be able to see each other's work. And I will see you back here for tomorrow when we do day 9, wet on wet. Thanks for hanging out with me, you guys.